Okay, video 12. So here we will continue with next condition, that is urolithiasis. Okay, so when we say urolithiasis, it refers to stones or calculi in the urinary tract. Okay, these stones are formed in the urinary tract when urinary concentration of substances like oxalate, calcium phosphate and uric acid increases. So when these substance concentration increases, automatically it becomes stones and it gets sedimented in the urinary tract. Okay, so urinary lithiasis refers to stone or calculi in the urinary stones, and we know how it is formed. Okay, next we will go to risk factors. We will see what are the various risk factors. So it is infection, urinary stasis, so urine gets accumulated, periods of immobility. Okay, so in these cases, when a person does not void, okay, for a long time, urinary stasis, then period of immobility when they are not moving here and there, okay, and they do not void, increased calcium concentration in the blood, that is hypercalcemia, leads to this calculi. Then about 75% of all renal stones are calcium based, so mostly it is calcium based. Other causes of hypercalcemia and hypercalciuria include, so what are the other various causes? It is hyperparathyroidism, where calcitonin is increased more, and then you have renal tubular acidosis. So this happens when there is a renal failure which acidifies, because of which the urine gets acidifies, and cancer. Then granulomatous disease, so it is an inherited primary immunodeficiency disorder. I repeat, it is an inherited primary immunodeficiency disorder which increases the body's susceptibility to infections caused by bacteria and fungi. So what happens because of the immunosuppressant, it is a immunodeficiency disease, primary. So it's a primary immunodeficiency, which means that it suppresses all the immune system, and thereby the body becomes susceptible. Okay, it is prone to develop lot of bacterial and fungi infections. So that which leads to granulomatous disease. Excessive intake of vitamin D. So we know that excessive intake of vitamin D allows in more absorption of the calcium. So again, calcium leads to stones. Then you have excessive intake of milk and alkali. So milk and alkali actually has got lot of calcium, leading to increased blood calcium level, which is hypercalcemia, again which causes the sedimentations of the stones, which is of calcium. Then you have myeloproliferative disease. So this myeloproliferative disease is a slow growing cancer which affects the bone marrow and the cells, blood cells. Like it increases RBC, WBC and platelets and gets accumulated in the blood. So even this leads to, it is one of the risk factor which causes urolithiasis. Next we will go to clinical manifestation. So talking about clinical manifestation, infection can occur from constant irritation by the stone. So if the stone is there for a longer period, automatically, which is not from the body, it will lead to infection. Then you have intense deep ache in the costovertebral region. So that we have seen for every kidney disease there will be a flank pain. Okay, so that is CVA region. Okay, so you know where it is, right? Under below the ribs and at the sides of the flank. Okay, it is at the sides of the rib cage, which is at the flank region. Then hematuria. Okay, so this also is very common with any kind of urinary infection, or because of the bladder, or the whole of the renal infection. Hematuria, blood in the urine, pyuria, pus in the urine. Then pain originates into the renal area, radiates anteriorly and downward toward the bladder in the female and toward the testis in the male. So men will be experiencing pain, okay, near their testis or the scrotum area, and then for female it will radiate anteriorly and downward close to the bladder. They will have the pain. Then nausea and vomiting will be there in the patient. Next, talking about the diagnostic procedures, as we know, history collection, collect the history. Physical examination, we can assess for pain or tenderness in a CVA region. Then X-ray films of the kidney and ureter, we can see if there is an stagnation of the urine, hydronephrosis, and we can see if there are stones that is present. CT scan can be done, MRI can be done, ultrasonography, USG of the kidney can be done, and blood chemistries, calcium level and other electrolytes can be checked. Okay, then one urea nitrogen can be checked. Next, moving on to management. So when we talk about management, so these opioid analgesics are administered to prevent shock and syncope that may result from the excruciating pain. So we should know that the patient, when they have urolithiasis, they will be having excruciating pain. So that time we have to give them opioid analgesic. It prevents shock to the patient, and syncope is dizziness. Okay, they'll feel dizzy, they will fall, also faint. So to prevent that, we have to give opioid analgesic. Then NSAIDs can be effective as other analgesics in treating renal stone pain. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs can be given. How hot bath or moist heat to the flank area may also, hot water bag, to relieve the pain can be given, or moist heat can be given, okay, to that particular area, so that to relieve the pain. This you have to do again with the physician's order. And the nutritional therapy plays an important role preventing renal stone unless contraindicated. Any patient with renal stone should drink at least 8-ounce glasses of water daily to keep the urine dilute, because high concentration of urine only is leading to the stones. So we have to increase them. Usually they'll say you have to drink 3 liters of water, it will dilute, and sometimes they say that even the stones will be washed out when they take the adequate water. And a urine output exceeding 21 a day is advisable. So urine output almost, so we should make sure that because they are drinking, more of water, we have to make sure that they pass more number of times urine. So they say here 21 a day is advisable. So we don't know, but we have to see how much is the intake and how much is the output. So according to the intake, if output is there, then it is of no problem. Coming on to surgical management. Now surgical management has to be done to remove the stones. So ureteroscopy, so visualization of the ureter. Next you have extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy. So here shock waves from the outside of the body are given or targeted at the kidney, and it will be given at the kidney. And what it will do is it will break the stones into fragment, that is a tiny pieces. Then later through an instrument like endourological stone removal, they will be able to remove the stone. So when we say endourological, it also knows minimal invasive urological surgery. Okay, so minimal amount through, small opening, they might just enter through this endourological stone removal after the lithotripsy, or even after lithotripsy itself, if we can just remove the stones. It will come, because it is broken into small fragments, automatically it will be drained into the urine. So we have to check that. But in endourological stone removal, we can insert that. It is a small invasive surgery. After inserting, we can remove the stones from the patient then and there. Okay, so that is about the surgical management. Okay, next you have nursing management. So under nursing management, we know that assess the pain, assess the vital signs, administer the drugs as per the order, then provide comfortable position, maintain intake and output chart, provide diversional therapy if they have pain. When they complain of pain, even with analgesic, then we have to assess the degree of pain, the intensity of the pain has to be observed. Then increase fluid intake of the patient, instruct as per the order. Okay, then instruct the patient to avoid activities that causes excessive sweating and dehydration, and then avoid sudden increase in environmental temperature that may cause excessive sweating, then because of the water loss. Okay, so we need water in the body to dilute the urine. So during the day, drink fluid every 1 to 2 hours, making sure that the patient is drinking, and we have to give them adequate information also about the fluid intake to the patient. So this is all about urolithiasis. See, we have in this video we have seen about urolithiasis definition, various risk factors, clinical manifestation, diagnosis, management, surgical management, and nursing management. So when it comes to nursing management, for every condition based upon the clinical manifestation, you should be able to write nursing diagnosis. So here we see that the patient will be having severe pain, okay, and then nausea, vomiting. So fluid volume deficit will be there for the patient. And then we see that the patient, because of nausea, vomiting, again patient will be having anorexia, or he won't be able to, so impaired nutrition, less than body requirement, okay, related to anorexia, if the patient has got anorexia. Okay, then comfort, the patient's comfort will be altered here. So discomfort related to pain in the CVA region. Okay, and then you should be able to write. Then fever because of the infection, hyperthermia. So hyperthermia, pain, fluid volume deficit, then discomfort or pain, okay, in the patient. Then knowledge deficit, then you have fear and anxiety. So like this you should be able to write according to the disease conditions. Okay, so with this we will end this video. Next video we will continue with other condition.